All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Boxingwave. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Smash the like button if you like the content. All right, share the video on your social media platforms. All right, hit me up on Instagram, Boxingwave10, and hit me up on Twitter as well, Boxingwave10. So I wanted to catch up on some of the heavyweight news and some upcoming fights. There's a lot of upcoming fights. Pretty much all of the major top fighters got a fight scheduled or fight close to being scheduled. And there's a couple other fights that's been announced in heavyweight that I'm going to address in this video here. Just trying to catch up on some of the recent news from this week and last week. So we're going to start out with Fabio Wardley against David Adeleye. Okay, the BBBOC, the British Boxing Board of Control, has ordered a fight for the British title, the British heavyweight title, between Fabio Wardley and David Adeleye. I guess for August. Now, this is not confirmed. The fight, I don't think the fight has actually been made yet. But this is a fight that I believe David Adeleye has been trying to make. I've seen him call him out, on social media and stuff like that. If you're not familiar, David Adeleye is a British boxer as well. He's on a come up, right? Hasn't had as many fights as Fabio Wardley and hasn't fought the better fighters neither. All right, but this is a fight that he really wants, and I know a lot of these British fighters usually try to get the British title first before they start fighting guys on a world level. Okay, risky fight for both. I mean, they're both undefeated. They're both younger in their careers, and risky fight because a loss from either one can definitely set them back a little bit. But a good fight, a fight that I actually like. I mean, if they are to make this fight, it's a pretty good fight. Like I said, it's a risky fight for both, but I like when these like up and coming, up in like prospect, like, because I don't feel like Fabio Wardley is really a prospect anymore. I think he's a little past that. I think he's like at a contender point at this point. He should be fighting like, like kind of like the Jared Anderson level type of fighters at this point. You know what I mean? Maybe like former champions or former top contenders, at one point. He should be fighting those kind of guys. And he's been fighting good fighters. He fought Michael Coffey, he fought Nate Gorman. He's fought Eric Molina, who everybody seems to keep fighting and beating up before they go to the next level. He fought Nick Webb, Richard Larte. That was a pretty good fight. He stopped him. So, he's a little further along, and he is the British world champion. But David Adeleye doesn't have the names that Fabio does, but it's still a good fight. It's a British fight. And I would like to see it, because I think both are shown. They both look good, but they both have their flaws, and I'm curious to see how they're gonna do against each other. I think Fabio is definitely more decorated so far, but David is a big guy at heavyweight. He's pretty explosive. He has decent fundamentals and stuff. I would like to see the fight. Big step for David though, even bigger step for David. But I like the fight, and hopefully they can make it. And we just gotta wait and see, if Fabio's gonna take the fight. All right. So let's go on to the next fight. Jared Big Baby Anderson. He's looking to make his return in August. He is making his return. He's getting back in there with Andriy Rudenko. Obviously, this is just a comeback, stay busy fight. I like the fact that he's staying busy. I don't care. And I've said this about fighters that either lost in a fight or either looked, didn't look so good in their last showing. To get right back in there, get right back in the mix, stay busy. It's clear that Jared Anderson has great ability. Like, he's showing to be very promising in the ring. I think the issue is the mentality there. You know what I mean? Showing, leading up to that fight with Charles Martin, and having that interview with Roy Jones, where it seems like doing all these interviews talking about early retirement, the pressure, the crying even after the fight with Charles Martin. It just seems like when he's in the ring, he's a beast. All right, but mentally it seems like he gets shaken up a lot. I think the pressure and it gets to him. And he did well against Charles Martin, but Charles Martin had his moments and hurt him a few times in that fight, you know. And I think that Top Rank and Bob and them probably just want to get him back in there against a lower. I think Rudenko is a step down for Jared Anderson, probably compared to his last three opponents or so. And I think they're just trying to get the confidence going. And Jared Anderson is going to go in there and knock this guy out. And I think that's what they're trying to do here. I don't think that this is like a step up fight. I think this is a confidence booster type of fight because I think that's the one thing he lacks. He fights with confidence, all right, but outside of the ring, you know, it seems like he has the insecurities and he's dealing with the pressure of being a young fighter and everything. You know, I'm really shocked by it because, and I've said this before after the Charles Martin fight, I'm really shocked by it because he really is a beast when he's in the ring. You know, he's trying to stop every opponent, but he seems like he doesn't love the sport. You know, I think he just does it because he has the talent. But, you know, I think he's really afraid of failure. I think that's probably what it is. You know what I mean? I think he's really, really afraid of failure. And it probably messes with his mind, his mental health and all that. And we're hearing the mental health thing a lot lately. You know, we're hearing it a lot with these fighters. It's not that it wasn't there before. It's always been there. But a lot of fighters are speaking out about it now, you know, because it's kind of popular to speak out about mental health and acknowledging, you know, and being open about what people are going through mentally. A lot of these fighters are going through it. And I think this fight with Rudenko, he's been in there with a lot of fighters, but he's lost every time he stepped up. You know, I've seen him before just doing film study. He's been in there with Gilles Zhang. He's been in there with Lucas Brown and Huey Fury. He's lost all these fights, you know, but he's 39 years old at this point. Doesn't really have anything to offer. You know, tough fighter. I think he's only been stopped once. But at this point, he has nothing for Jared Anderson. This is definitely a step down for Jared Anderson. But I like the fact that he's staying active, staying busy, just keeping his game sharp and fresh and just staying active. So I like that. I like that. I love that. But Jared Anderson has to focus up here. You know, I don't know if he's getting therapy or whatever, but, you know, he has to decide what he wants to do because you can have all that talent, but what's good at having the talent if you're doing something that you don't really love, you don't really want to do, you know, 23 years old talking about retiring at 27. It just goes to show he doesn't really love the game. You know what I mean? Even with the money involved and stuff. I think he has a great lane and there's definitely an opportunity there for him to be world champion. You know, after these guys are done with Furies and the Joshuas and the Wilders are gone, I think he has one of the better potentials of getting there at some point. But if you don't really love it like that, and if you're really that afraid of failure, maybe this is not really for you. You know what I mean? So this is just going to be a tune-up fight. This is not a fight that I'm expecting Rudenko to win. Okay, this is just a fight that I expect Jared Anderson to win in, you know, 1 or 2 rounds. You know what I mean? Just go in there and demolish him, get the confidence up, get back in the game. You know, he got a lot of criticism after the Charles Martin fight, which I don't think he should, based on the performance. I know he got hurt, but it's more like, you know, I think in the ring, what the issue that I had, and I said this before, the fight with Charles Martin is, you know, sometimes he get caught with a good shot and he just starts fighting reckless. You know, and I've said this about him. I said this about the what was the fight? The Jerry Forrest fight. You know, I mean, even though it worked out for him and he stopped Forrest early, I didn't like the approach. I didn't like when Jerry Forrest caught him with a good shot, he started fighting all wild and shit, you know. I think he needs to stop that, you know, and just stay disciplined. You know, I think that is the biggest issue. You know, I think the ability, he clearly has it. But he needs to stay disciplined as the fight is going, you know, because all of these other guys are dangerous, and he has other people that's out there that's been fighting just as long as him that are potentially dangerous opponents for him. So he has to get that in order. You know, if your ability is good, but your mental ain't all that, then you know you're gonna be fooled at some point. You know. All right. What should we talk about next? Let's talk about Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz real quick. The fight is not it's not official yet, but I feel like it is because there's nowhere else for these two to go. You know, now they've been publicly going back and forth, making videos and making content about each other. Um, and I feel like when this happens, these fights are already made. I mean, you're both PBC. You have no real, you know, this is a fight that we knew was going to happen at some point. It makes sense for it to happen. But for whatever reason, they can't really agree on the terms as far as the purse. You know, I know. And like again, I hate when this happens. You know, I think Wilder wants like 70%. I think Ruiz thinks it should be 50-50. I'm not doing that no more, man. I'm cool with whatever these fighters agree with. You know, unless it's like a ridiculous, unrealistic amount, like with the purses. I'm not gonna sit here and try to break down why Wilder deserves more, you know, or why Ruiz deserves 50. Make it work. All right. I feel like at this point right now that the fight is a good fight. I think everybody else is scheduled. You know, if Wilder is going to be fighting Anthony Joshua by the end of the year, which is what they're saying that is done or is agreed on, if Joshua beats Dillian Whyte, this is a great fight for Wilder. You know, just you know, it's a good fight. It's a good fight. It'll be a pay-per-view, you know, and it's a good fight. It's just a fight that needs to happen for the PBC, and these are the two top guys at the PBC. You know what I'm saying? They both have wins over Luis Ortiz, you know. Andy Ruiz has a win over Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? Like, make the fight, you know? Whatever y'all got to do to make it work, make it work. If you guys got to make a phone call to each other to make it work and stop going on the internet, it might be done, but maybe the internet is to promote the fight, to sell the fight, to get people to talk about whether or not because that's the thing, they understand that fans like to argue about purses. I just talked about this last night with Errol and Bud Crawford. The fight is made, it's less than 2 weeks away, and people still in the comments talking about A side this, A side that. This is what I mean. They know you guys like that shit. You know what I mean? So they might just be selling the fight by just arguing about who deserves more money, because they know a lot of you guys care more about that than the actual fight. You know, you care about whose fault it is for it to be delayed and all this. I'm not doing it. You know, it's fights from the past that people are still arguing about, like Manny and Floyd. People are still arguing about why it took so long, whose fault, who was at fault. The fight happened already. I already saw who won the fight. What am I talking about? Whose fault it was? I don't care about that. Make the fight. So make it work. Announce the fight. Get a date. Everybody else is booked. Usyk is booked. Fury is booked. Joshua's booked. Like, all these guys are booked. You know what I mean? And then you got the younger guys coming up. Get the fight made. Let's get it going. The back and forth on the internet, we don't care. Get the fight made. It's a good fight. Get it done. You know, whatever y'all got to do, make it work. All right? Because it's a good fight. And people want to see it, you know, and it makes sense. There's no other fight outside of, you know, in the PBC. There's no other fight that is as good. All right, so make that fight. All right, Alexander Usyk against Daniel Dubois is official. You know, Dubois was the mandatory for one of his titles. I forgot which one. I should have checked, but you know, I think it's the WBA. No, you know what? Let me check, because I think it is the WBA. You know, because I know I remember making content about it was ridiculous how the WBA even had Dubois ranked so high, because of the rankings. Daniel Dubois had to fight this guy. Let me look it up. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I didn't like how Daniel Dubois lost to Joe Joyce, but came back and fought Bogdan Dinu. That's his name. In order to get an interim title shot with the WBA. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was a political move to keep him, in position to fight for a title. You don't fight Dinu, then Kusamano, and then earn a WBA title shot, before Joyce. And I know Joyce lost, but it's just ridiculous. Joyce was a mandatory before all these guys, right? And he was still fighting quality fighters, stopped Daniel Dubois, went on to fight Carlos Takam, went on to fight Christian Hammer, went on to fight Joseph Parker, stopping him. And you meaning to tell me that Daniel Dubois is going to be fighting for a title before Joe Joyce? Ridiculous. I know Joyce lost to Zhilei Zhang, but I mean, this guy was just running through real fighters, top fighters. Daniel Dubois should not be there, Daniel Dubois is none against him, but it is what it is. He barely won his last fight against Kevin Lerena. You beating up Trevor Bryan, and this is ridiculous, man. It just shows the corruption here, and I mean, his promoter did a good job, obviously, to pull some strings to land him this position to get a fight, but Daniel Dubois has not earned it over a lot of other fighters, not just Joe Joyce. All right, but as far as a fight itself, this is really just happening because Usyk and Fury fell apart. And Usyk got to defend his title against his mandatory in the WBA. The fight itself, I'm expecting Usyk to win, but I'm not going to completely sleep on Daniel Dubois simply because Usyk is getting up there in age. And even though he just came off of beating Joshua twice, Daniel Dubois is a different fighter than Anthony Joshua. I don't think he is as talented. I don't think he's nearly as talented as AJ, but he's pretty aggressive. I mean, he's going to bring the fight straight at you, and I prefer the Derek Chisora approach against Usyk over the AJ approach in both fights. I thought AJ was a little bit more aggressive in the second fight. I thought he was better in the second fight, but it still wasn't enough. I prefer the approach of Derek Chisora, being bigger, more rough, rugged, not trying to outbox Usyk, which is what AJ tried to do and failed at it. Daniel Dubois is not going to be trying to outbox Usyk. He's going to be trying to knock his head off. So, can he do it better than Derek Chisora? If he can, he may have a shot. All right? Usyk is going to do what he does. All right? He's going to let these bigger, stronger guys be as aggressive, and he's going to pick them apart. Hit them with the counters and wait to this guy to slow down a little bit and take over. I think that's the approach he's going to take. I think that's what is going to win him the fight. But Daniel Dubois has a chance because of the style, But the thing about Usyk, and I have Usyk winning this fight. I'm just playing devil's advocate, Usyk is going to win the fight to me. Usyk is he doesn't get enough credit for his durability. He just doesn't. Everybody talks about how small he is, but he's been getting hit by these bigger hitters, bigger punchers. Even down at cruiserweight, he was fighting punchers. He's getting beat up in a lot of his fights. Usyk has been through some wars, and we've never seen him down. You know what I mean? Joshua, puncher. Chisora, puncher. Bellew, puncher, a cruiser. Gassiev, big puncher. Briedis, puncher. You know what I mean? All of these guys are punchers. And he went through them all, beat them all. But he's getting up there. You know, he's 36 years old. At some point, he's going to start slowing down. And I think that is the best chances for Dubois. If he's going to win the fight, he's going to take a different approach than AJ. You know, you can't completely sleep on him. You can't sleep on him. You know, that would be a travesty if Dubois were to win. But I know if Fury is to beat Ngannou or, you know, whatever that situation is going on with that, I'll talk about that in a minute. That's exactly what Frank Warren would want, because both of those guys are his fighters. You know, he would love a Dubois versus Fury fight, and the Fury will make that in a heartbeat. You know, but they waiting for this guy to slow down. They're waiting for this guy to slow down. You know, Usyk is he's a guy that he has great conditioning, great stamina, great rhythm, you know. Very technically sound. You know, likes to outwork a lot of these guys, but once he starts slowing down, it's going to be harder for him to beat some of these bigger guys. And that's what they're counting on. Dubois has a lot more of a chance to win now than he did a couple of years ago. All right. But Dubois is coming off of a win against a southpaw that almost ended him. Okay. Another southpaw not nearly as good as Usyk. So I still have Usyk winning. You know, Dubois. I just think that Dubois has somewhat of a chance now, because I think Usyk is just, he's getting to that point where he's not at some point he's gonna look old. He just hasn't yet, but at some point he will look old. We just don't know when. It could be this fight, it could be the next one, you know. Hopefully, if Usyk is to win, hopefully we get Fury in the very next fight after that. All right. So let's go right into the Fury fight. He's supposed to be fighting Francis Ngannou, who is the the former UFC champion. All right. Never boxed before. This is not going to be a sanctioned fight. It's not going to be for the title. I don't, last thing I read was that they were trying to make this fight like they were trying to, make this fight like a recorded professional win for Fury. I don't know. It's like it's an exhibition, but they're trying to make it like a real pro fight. I don't think it should be a pro fight. I think it should be an exhibition. But if they make it a pro fight, fine. He's never boxed before. Same thing with Floyd and Conor McGregor. If they make it a pro fight, they make it a pro fight. As long as the title is down the line. I'm like everybody else. I think it's ridiculous that Fury is going to go off and fight an MMA fighter that's never boxed before over fighting Usyk that is undisputed. I really don't know what else to say. I really don't have anything else to say. Ngannou, I love him as a MMA fighter. He's coming off of a huge win against Gane. Gane got stopped by John Jones easily. I thought the Gane fight was a very dangerous fight for Ngannou, and it was a very competitive fight. It was a very close fight, but John Jones went in there and just completely dismantled him in like 30 seconds. So, with that being said, Ngannou, very explosive, very big man, very powerful puncher, one of the most dangerous punchers in probably UFC history. But when it comes to boxing and these kind of fights, when it comes to translating over to boxing, you have to go rounds. You have to go rounds, and it's not just, all these all these heavyweights, they always have a puncher's chance. saying that Ngannou has a puncher's chance is like, who doesn't have a puncher's chance at heavyweight? Yes, he might hit harder than some other boxers, but it's gonna take more than that to beat the best heavyweight in the world currently. Um, it's gonna take more. And I'm not really excited about it. I mean, do what they want to do. Hopefully, they make their money. But it's very disappointing. It's just like Fury is just like, what are you doing? You're making a mockery of this division. You were one fight away from becoming undisputed. It just goes to show he doesn't really want it that bad. He clearly doesn't want it, and this is why I don't like comparing him to all the other fighters historically, because I want to see more from him. I know he beat Wilder. You know what I mean? I know he beat Dillian Whyte. I know he dethroned Klitschko. But before we go into those generational comparisons, I don't want to do it. Because he's like usually 1 or 2 fights away from the next big thing, and there's always something to disrupt things. When you won the titles before, you retired. Now you won the WBC, you beat Wilder, that's done. But you're not fighting AJ, you're not fighting Usyk, you're fighting a guy that's never boxed before. You know what I mean? And if he were to lose this fight, let me not even go there. Let me just add that I don't like these crossover fights unless these guys are going to agree to do the MMA part 2. It's like these MMA fighters are handicapping themselves to go over boxing, and you're fighting someone, you're fighting in somebody else's world without them fighting in yours. You know what I mean? Like, do the 2-fight deal. That makes it more interesting. You the baddest man on the planet. You the baddest man on the planet. All right, cool. You fight each other in each other's worlds. But the problem is with this baddest man on the planet, like I said that Fury a moment ago, I said that Fury is the best fighter, heavyweight in the world. You still got work to do, man. Like, it might be you, but it might be Usyk. Same thing with Ngannou. Now, I understand he left the UFC. He wasn't getting paid. I looked up his purse. His highest purse is $600K. So I understand Ngannou for doing what he's doing because he wants to get paid. He's getting up there in age. He's got to be what? He's probably like close to 40. How old is Francis? He's 36 years old. All right, he's not that old. All right, but he wants to get paid, so I understand where he's coming from. But, you got to come over to boxing to make the money, so I get it. But do the 2-fight deal, But they're not going to do it. I think because I made a video on this, and not when I didn't know who Ngannou was going to fight. I made a video that was more like just talking about Ngannou fighting as a boxer. And I brought up names of people Whyte. I brought up Chisora. I brought up Wilder. I brought up AJ. Who would he fight first? Would he go straight in? It makes sense for him to go straight at the top, because if you were to take a lower end opponent just to tune up before fighting a bigger name or a bigger talent, there's the risk of losing that first boxing match. You know what I mean? So if you have the opportunity to go straight at Tyson Fury, I understand. He wants to make big money for him, so I understand from his standpoint. But so that John Jones fight still can happen. Just would have to probably happen outside of the UFC. I don't know if that can ever happen. I know Dana White said that he's never gonna come back to fight for the UFC, so I don't know how that's gonna work, but. I hope he makes a lot of money. I wish him the best. I hope he makes a lot of money. It would be pretty embarrassing if Tyson Fury was to lose, get knocked out for the whole boxing world, for a guy that's never boxed to come out and come over and knock out the current champ. That would be pretty embarrassing, but I wouldn't feel bad for Fury. I wouldn't feel bad for him at all. He should be fighting Usyk, not this guy. All right, but good luck to Francis Ngannou. Hopefully he makes a lot of money. I care about more about him getting paid than him winning because I think he deserves it. I think he deserves it. All right, but I don't think he has a shot. I think Fury is gonna beat him. Whether he stops it or not. I mean, I think Fury's gonna win the fight. Really depends on how durable. I think Ngannou's just gonna get tired and burnt out at some point. No matter what, he's just not gonna have the stamina to go to the distance. To me. All right. And last but not least, Anthony Joshua is going to be fighting Dillian Whyte in a rematch this summer, I believe in August. I mean, I was expecting this. We all was expecting this. I mean, if from what we were told by Eddie Hearn that if Joshua wins, he's going to be fighting Wilder in the winter. I feel this way. I feel the same way about this fight as I do with Daniel Dubois and Usyk. I know no one is expecting Whyte to win. Whyte has not looked great in his last 5 or so fights. He's been taking a lot of losses lately. It seems like ever since the Oscar Rivas fight and the Derek Chisora rematch, it seemed like everything kind of went downhill for him. He had that whole drug situation, which made him come in at his heaviest against Marius Walk. That's his worst performance. He ends up getting knocked out by Alexander Povetkin. He comes back and stops Povetkin, but Povetkin was older and even older and coming off of COVID. Right, but he avenged the loss. He got knocked out by Tyson Fury, and then in the Jermaine Franklin, he had a disputable win against Jermaine Franklin. So Dillian Whyte has not looked like the top tier fighter he's always been in his most recent fights. Anthony Joshua, you can make an argument that Anthony Joshua hasn't neither. All right, I mean, he lost to Usyk twice. He fought Jermaine Franklin. I mean, he clearly won the fight, but it looked better against Jermaine Franklin than Dillian Whyte did. But people are still questioning whether or not AJ has the killer instinct anymore. You know what I mean? I definitely expected a stoppage in that Franklin fight, especially with him being with Derrick James now. I think it's more of a mental thing with AJ. AJ has been, just listening to his interviews and stuff, he seemed to be really sold on being a really complete boxer. And as much as I think he wants that, and as much as he wants to, I think he's too concerned with not getting hit, And I think this whole thing is taken away from what he actually is. I never, even when he used to be more aggressive against Dillian Whyte in the first fight and stuff, I never took it as AJ was just some kind of brawler that just keeps getting hit. You know what I mean? I think he's always been defensive, to a certain extent. I think he's gotten better, but it took away from his killer instinct, when going into that Andy Ruiz rematch. And it could hurt him in this fight. And what I mean by that, and I do think he's going to win. All right, I do have him beating Dillian Whyte. But Dillian Whyte, if he comes in an approach where he's being the aggressor, if he's coming in there similar to the way he did against Povetkin, against another guy that has previously knocked him out, if he's coming in there with that approach, it might be a tough fight. One little statistic with Dillian Whyte is that he's looked good in his rematches. All right? He's had a rematch with Derek Chisora, knocked him out. He had a rematch against Povetkin, knocked him out. Don't overlook that fact, okay, that he might be better this time around. And I know he's getting older too. He's 36 years old. He may be fading. But this is a fight that he's going to be motivated to win. And if Joshua is not as aggressive as he was in that first fight, he might be in trouble trying to just box with Dillian Whyte. Now, Dillian Whyte, on the other hand, is not coming in being aggressive, all right, and looking for the knockout. Then he's going to get schooled by AJ from a boxing standpoint, for sure. All right? But if he comes in an approach where he's going to be looking to KO Joshua and being very aggressive, yes, it's dangerous, but I don't think he wins any other way, you know? So I think, most people don't care, at least me, I mean, most people that's not, at least on this side, probably really don't care for this fight. But it's not a bad fight, and being that AJ is not fighting as aggressive as he used to, it kind of makes it a little bit more even. He's still the favorite to win, and he should win the fight, but him not being as aggressive, like AJ was nasty at one point where you just saw him being a hunter. You know what I mean? I kind of missed that. I wish he could find a way to blend that, like how Jamel Charlo did. Jamel, used to be this boxer guy that turned into a hunter. But then when he started being overly aggressive and not applying educated pressure, he paid the price in the Tony Harrison fight and even in the first Castano fight. But I love this Castano rematch where he applied a little bit of both, where we saw him being educated and disciplined, working behind his jab. I wish AJ could find that medium where he wants to go in there and be a beast, but he wants to be smart with it too, Saw a little bit of it in the Usyk rematch. I saw a little bit of it in the what was the fight? Who's the other fighter? Real quick, let me just pull him up real quick. Pulev. I saw a little bit of it there, but I think AJ's gonna have to find a way to be a little bit mean. You know what I mean? Like while the fight is going, he has to be mean. Go in there, knock out Dillian Whyte. And Dillian Whyte needs to go in there with the same approach, the same attitude. Like, I got to knock this guy out. He needs to look at AJ like he's soft. Like, I'm going to take his head off. AJ needs to go in there like, this guy's coming for me. You know what I mean? I want to put him away. I want to let people see that I still got it. Because if he is going to be fighting Wilder in December, this whole boxing not get hit thing is not going to work with Wilder. Wilder, it just takes one shot. You have to, he has to go into that fight. Like, he wants to take out Wilder before Wilder takes him out. Because Wilder only is going in there to do one thing. So in preparation to that fight, he has to take that same approach with Dillian Whyte. All right, so that's all, I wanted to discuss today with the heavyweights. Please, again, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, all that. I'll see you guys on the next one. I got to do another video right away with the lightweights because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about the lightweights next. All right, just wanted to get the heavyweights out of the way. I got to run out. I'll be back later with some more content. Peace.